People who live in zones 8, 9, and 10 can propagate year-round. Even if you don't know the name of the plant that you want to propagate, there is no harm in trying. You don't need to go buy any type of products or any materials to get this done, because this is about experimenting within the boundaries of what Mother Nature can do. These tips are things that you can apply for the rest of your life and throughout your gardening journey. So the first set of clips that I'm going to start with are going to be about propagating in water. So here's a couple cuttings that I took from a plant called, it comes up as Mexican honeysuckle. I'm not sure exactly what the fancy name is, Latin name, but I'm just going to show the steps that I do when I'm going to propagate in water. So I basically just make sure it's got a nice clean cut at the bottom. Remove all the leaves that might be below the water surface, because that would just make the water unhealthy. So we don't want any leaves sitting in the water. And then the other thing that I'll do is, if there's any buds coming up or any blooms that are potentially coming out, I will snip those off. This one just looks like it has new growth at the top. It could be buds, could not be, but either way, I'm going to snip that off. This just relieves the plant from any burdens that it might have of focusing on that duty instead of root duty. It makes orange trumpet-like blooms that are really skinny that the hummingbirds absolutely love. And I already know that it roots easy in water, and it's a really good perennial for this region. I'm going to go ahead and stick that in my pail now. You don't have to use something this big. You can use just a bottle. You don't have to use a watering can, but the reason why I do is because it just kind of fell into my lap. It's the smallest watering can that I have, and I keep it on my back porch, so I just decided to put it to use. If anything, it's a display. Whatever doesn't make it is no big deal. But you can use anything, and you could also have it inside. Me, I don't really want to mess with the fuss, so I keep it outside. So this plant is called shrimp plant, and I'm going to do the same process. I'm just going to remove the leaves, and I'm going to snip off any buds that are blooming, because we don't want that demand to be on the plant while we're trying to root it, because a plant will always prioritize the flower and seed. Just by nature, that's its priority. So as long as they're there, they're going to focus energy on that, when we really want to direct energy towards getting some new roots established. So that's the reason for removing them. Now the next plant that I'm going to do is lantana, and I've never tried this one. I'm doing it just for the fun of it. I will definitely post an update on the progress on my video. I'm taking one of the woodier stems of this plant, and I just want to show you the steps that I take to prep it for propagating. All right, so I'm cutting them back to like the first set of leaves on each branch. Then when a stem is really woody like this, the odds are better if you just give it a little scraping like this. This helps any type of root formation that's going to happen. It doesn't guarantee root formation. It makes it easier for the plant to start absorbing moisture through this area. So just use the inside of your blade. You can still try this propagation method without doing this step, but if you really are interested in learning, take 2 cuttings, do this to one and don't do this to the other one, and stick them in water and see what happens. And then you'll see from those results, you'll learn why that step helps the rooting happen, because you will see a bigger cluster of roots usually on the area you scraped. And those are usually the first to start forming as well. So actually, I've decided for the sake of this video, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to put a lantana. Now, I don't know if either of these are going to propagate, because I've never tried propagating lantana. I've never needed to, because there's always an abundance of it. But in case you want more of a specific type of lantana, the only way to guarantee that you can get that exact variety is by taking a cutting. Now that is an actual clone of whatever plant you're cutting it off of. You will get the exact same plant. With seeds, you never know. There's always a chance of it being some type of hybrid variety. So this one I'm not going to scrape, but I just did all the other steps. I'm going to remove any blooms and extra. Oops, I accidentally cut too low, but that's how it is. It is what it is. That's what I'm going to do. I'm putting this one in there. It's just got a couple sets of small leaves, and I'm not going to scrape the bottom, and we'll be able to see the difference, if anything happens between the 2 different prep methods. We'll be able to compare. So these are both going in the pot. I don't have a shortage of Esperanzas. This plant gets pretty big, but it does make beautiful flowers. And I think if I end up being able to root this one, I'll make a spot for it. On this one, I'm just gonna remove most of the sets of leaves so that we have it. I am gonna give this one a little scrape. So this plant, I was not trying to root it. It just rooted. And I'm so thrilled. And look at the flower on there. And this is Turk's Cap. Turk's Cap is a Texas native and apparently super easy to propagate. So there's one. Oh, here's another Turk's Cap. Look at this. Okay, so they were both put in there at the same time. But either way, both plants are still alive. One's making flowers. No effort, zero effort. I literally forgot about this pot. I was not expecting this. Mexican sagebush. Check this out. I put this in there at the same time about 3 weeks ago. And then, look at this. Check it out, Mexican sagebush. Will root in water. That's how simple it is. I didn't plan this. I've never rooted this. I've never tried to propagate this. All of these roots in just a few weeks. Now, the location that I have these is on my back porch. It gets morning sun for about 5 hours. I have only changed the water like once. And I don't even think I changed it. I just think I added to it because it was getting low. One time in 3 weeks, I just added water. At no point did I dump it out and change it and freshen it up like you would think should be done. Because it was on my back porch, I just kind of forgot about it. I came across it and I was just about to dump it and toss it. And so basically it's 2 Turk's Caps and 2 Mexican sagebush. That's what the big results are. So you can do this. If you have a shrub that you like in your yard, when it makes new growth, before it's kept up, it'll have these new shoots that have grown out that are, they're out of place. Those are the ones that are going to be the most likely to root off of the plant because they have a growth hormone in them already that is encouraging the growth. So by snipping the new shoots or the new growth off of any type of shrub increases your chances of success of propagation. So the other thing that I want to stress about when you do propagate in water is you can't go straight from this situation where the root is in water and then go straight to dirt. I had to learn that the hard way. I call it the muddy part, where you're transitioning the roots to adapt to the soil conditions, so without drying out and going into shock and killing off the plant. So what I like to do is I put them in a regular container with dirt, but then I make sure they're sitting in a saucer with water or some type of tray with water for at least 2 to 3 weeks while the roots adapt to getting the moisture that it needs from the soil, because it is a different type of demand on the roots, thriving or living in water conditions and then transitioning to soil. The way that they adapt is by that transition of just making sure the soil stays moist for the first couple weeks. That's all you got to do. The best way to do that is to set it in a tray. Trying to remember to go back and water it every day is not worth it. Just put them in a tray and forget about it and you'll be good. Now this next section of propagation is about taking cuttings the same way that you would for rooting in water, but we're going to put them straight into the ground. I try to create a little tucked away area that I call a propagation station. It's something that is very low to the ground, very out of the way, and kind of tucked somewhere where it wouldn't be noticed by the client. The criteria that I make sure that the propagation station has is a low amount of sunlight and a steady access to irrigation or a sprinkler nearby that I know is going to water. If you have that dedicated area that I described for setting up a place to propagate in your ground, in your yard, under a shrub or somewhere that's out of the way, that is where you can place cuttings to learn more about propagating the plants that you have. So here's some more about that method. Now for azalea, it's best to get the cuttings from somewhere that's not blooming, and then you just remove the bottom part of the stems. So for Artemisia, I like to cut the ones that I would trim anyway to maintain the shape. Remove that bottom outer leaves, and I pinch the top just so it relieves the stress of creating roots. This is the area where I want to put my cuttings, and I'm gonna just mark it so I remember with these bricks. Here's the azaleas, my boxwoods, and here's my Artemisia. I just took 2 of Artemisia. If you're short on space for propagating in pots and stuff, which I always am, And with as many gardens as I manage, this is a method that just works best for me because I don't have to worry about it getting water. In a pot, it's really important to not let it dry out. And that happens really easy. If I only visit a garden once a week and there's pots outside that need water, I'm risking all that effort. So by putting it straight in the ground, I've pretty much helped secure the success rate. Around Artemisia, Boxwood, and Azaleas. Small oak right here that they wanted to remove that I cut down, and I really scaled back this holly. And as I was working right here, I can't tell you how many times I stepped on everything. I'm gonna show you what's left of the things. Okay, so here's an Artemisia and here's an Artemisia. One is definitely looking better than the other. It is the cool weather months. And again, like I said, I really just stepped on them. All of these got stepped on by me. I'm a horrible plant parent. Anyway, these are the azaleas. So this is one that never really looked like much. This is the one that looked better earlier today before I stepped on it, but I stepped on it and broke the branch right there in the middle. But I'm still gonna leave it. And of course this one looks fantastic, and this one's a little crying a little bit. Well, it's what I like to call a propagation station anyway. So I'm going to dig a couple trenches, long ways like this. And this is where I'm going to put new cuttings. Way early in my gardening journey, I wish somebody had told me, hey, you know, you could just take a cutting of any plant you like and stick it in the dirt and see what happens. I think I would be so much more advanced as a gardener than I am now. That's something I probably didn't think about or consider doing probably 6 or 7 years into gardening. It just didn't cross my mind. I don't know why. Maybe I'm slower than others. I don't know. But if you have considered propagating or wondered about propagating and thought it was too advanced or that you need some kind of special conditions or soils or rooting hormones or all this other stuff, don't let that stop you from learning about the plants you have in your yard, and if you can get free plants out of the things that you happen to have that you really like. Setting your expectations low and being patient. Those are the two main things that will, help you learn the most from this experiment. So anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm calling it a propagation station, but it's going to be in ground. I'm going to use one of these with potting soil, to see if there's any different. This is just an experiment. If you like this kind of thing and you really want to know the outcome, the best thing you can do is subscribe. These are the kind of things that I'm going to be showing updates on. So it's here for some props in the native soil. And then right here, I'm digging out a trench and I'm going to put the soil from these pots in there. And now let's go get some cuttings. Okay, so these cuttings right here, you see how this little shrub is putting out this new growth that's really sparse and random? These are the ones that are going to be most successful, even though this isn't the best time for propagating plants. That doesn't mean that you can't take the best cuttings possible. I'm really tempted to take it because I don't know the name of it. I think that increases my desire to try it. Okay, this is going to be the unknown. Because that's the whole point of this, taking stuff that we don't know about and experimenting. That's really the point here. Okay, this is an azalea. Looks like it got a little bit of frostbite, which I don't know how because it's a evergreen, but I'm gonna take these the two long ones that looked too long. Okay, this is a camellia, and I'm gonna go for that. I'm just gonna try, see if I can find an area with a little, I'm gonna do this part right here. Maybe something from down here. It's looking a little crowded. Increase airflow. So when I make my cuts, I'm doing the cuts that are best for the plants. If I don't see anything that really needs to be cut, then I just look for places that will just improve the overall plant's ability to grow, which in that case, just improving airflow in some of those crowded areas. Okay, so here's the cuttings that I have. So 4 boxwoods. Yeah, so 2 boxwoods, 2 on this side, 2 on that side. This is Azalea. Probably get a couple cuttings out of this. Same process, remove the leaves, putting 1 on that side with the native soil. Then I'm gonna do the same thing with this part. Remove the bottom half of the leaves. The parts that you remove leaves, those are the parts that can make roots. So those 2 down there. Now, here's the camellia, and I'm going to, now I wasn't special about how I made these cuttings according to like what would be the most success rate. I just chose these based on what the plant needed. This is purely guess, but I think I'm gonna kind of stick these in the middle because it's a really, I don't know. So I'm gonna just stick those in the middle. Just going down to a couple leaves. And I'm scoring the outside because it's a really woody stem. Same with these. This is the mystery plant that I'm not sure what it's called. I've never planted one of these, but I'm gonna just treat it the same way because this is what I'm telling everybody to do. Not to worry if you know what it is. Don't worry about it. If you like it and you wanna grow it, you just try it. That's the goal here, that's the message. Since I really like camellia, I'm going to snip off a bunch of these. Now, the ones that have these little buds forming, I'm taking those off because that would just take too much away from the potential here. And I'm actually getting aggressive with the camellias because I'm really excited about them potentially working. And I am already set up with low expectations. I do not expect these to root, but I'm gonna be thrilled if they do, but I do not expect them to. So that's the goal here, keeping the expectations low. Okay. So this is the ones in the fancy, cushy soil. This is right in the middle of the 2. The reason why I chose this area is because it's out of direct sun. There is a irrigation sprinkler right here. I know that it runs like for 1 or 2 minutes a week, which is really all this should need during the cool months. So I need to put this native soil back. So, and I know it's out of direct sun because this is the north side of the home and because it's underneath this holly, or what's left of this holly that I just trimmed back. And that's one of the considerations to think about when you are picking a spot for doing a little propagation station like this. A little outdoor propagation station straight into the ground. That's what this is. So I'm just gonna water these in. This technique is called layering, and the process involves just taking a woody stem branch and prepping it in a manner that it can lay on the soil for a few months, and then you forget about it, and then when you go back a few months later, you have a whole new plant there. I'm going to show you the technique that I use that can be done to get plants from any woody stem plant, and it's called layering. So in this particular case, I'm going to use a landscape staple to hold this in place, and I'm not going to put it in place until I'm done. And so what I'm doing is I'm creating a path for the branch to lay in. It's just a little pathway, so I know it's going to make good contact with the dirt. I'm nestling in there, and I know I want to plant here, maybe here, and at least out there. I'm going to remove all the leaves that are going to come in contact with the soil. So you can take your pruners or a knife or even your fingernail, and all you're going to do is simply rub just a little bit of the bark off like that, wherever you want it to make roots. So I know they can get a little deeper. Because in this particular situation, I actually only have 1 landscape staple with me. Normally I would put 1 on each spot, but I'm going to come back over this one because I don't feel like going over the middle was going to hold it tight enough. There we go. Now that's making really good contact. So now, and it doesn't look great at first, but the leaves will round themselves out and go back to facing the upright position, usually within a few days, at the most a week. But anyway, so over the winter, this can take its time with no stress, no heat to worry about slowing it down. I like to put the rock directly on the area that I want rooted. Sometimes I've buried it and then placed the rock, but in this case, I'm gonna put a little bit of dirt on it, but I want the rock to be really on there because that makes it easier for me to come back and see exactly where I have that rooted area. So that's a way that you can do layering without a landscape staple. So I layered this piece right here, maybe more like early spring of this year I did this. Here's where it goes in and here's where it comes out. So let's just see how these roots feel them. So the way I'm gonna separate this is I'm just gonna cut the part that goes down like that. So now I've separated it from the mother plant right there. Now I'm gonna cut this back a tiny bit, and technically this part right here can be dug up and is its own plant. So let's see. see how this came out. And here's all the new roots from where I layered it earlier this season. I hope that something in this video motivates you to get out there and do some propagating today. And if you're really interested in this topic, then be sure to follow along, because these are the types of things that I update often in many videos. Even if the topic isn't about propagating, when I go to a client's house, I will often visit my propagation station and give a little update on what's going on there. So if this interests you, I hope you'll subscribe and join me again.